I find myself in a Cub Scout shirt. I'm the Tiger leader. How? Eddie Stevens. We spend that year camping, hanging out with our kids, building pine wood derby, and I find myself in two things. I have a friend, and I have an inspiration. Somebody who made me get up off that couch. Fast forward a few years, I'm no longer just a Tiger leader. I'm assistant Cub master. 5 years pass. Our boys are going to St. Anne's together. Because not only are they involved in leadership, Center for Child Counseling taking my place on the board, they're also volunteering at Big Dog Bridge. They give. I end up with a dog. Well, my wife ends up with a dog. But let's come back to Leadership Grow. Leadership Grow. We bring our teams here last year, September, October. Visited Kelsey Theater, the Brewhouse Gallery. Eddie's inspired. When Eddie's inspired, he doesn't do what I do. Write a check, post on Facebook. Yeah, like, click some likes here. Eddie gets involved. That's why we're here tonight. Eddie gets involved. He inspires us, tries to make us a more genuine self. So tonight we're talking about living an extraordinary life. I'm going to get off the stage now. I'm the one he's inspired to be more genuine, to be myself with my talents. So, we're going to bring him to the stage, let him inspire you to be more genuine self, but let that infectious energy help you learn to live an extraordinary life. Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Stevens.
Good evening. Happy Passover. And thank you for coming tonight. This is kind of a neat evening. AJ, thank you for inviting me and allowing me to do this. Bill, wonderful words. The best 11th graders in Palm Beach County, we have the honor of taking them once a month to different places in Palm Beach County. And about 6 months ago, we came here to AJ's brew house, and he spoke to them. And he taught us, we've been visiting a couple of years, and this is the first year I learned about Kelsey Cares. And that was a very inspirational moment for me, which kind of led this to happen. So I walk up to AJ and I said, well, you know, you have this 501c3, let's get some money for it. $5,000 to raise. And AJ said, well, that's great, but what happens if we don't make enough money to pay for the theater that night? Because it costs money just for an artist to come here and put this on. There's people working, there's bartenders, there's security. So I sent out a little message to my friends. And just a couple of emails, and I said, I have a really good cause, and I get to do something really neat for a great organization. And within 48 hours, we received over $2,000 from people just wanting to support this purpose. And their names are up on the screen right now. The Smith family, I think they're here. Camino Software, your divorce attorney, you know what that is? R.T. White. We'll be at the Improv April 10th. Julie Hirschman. Leslie. Daniel Smith. Gary Leslie from Florida. Monty Resnick. One of his daughters are in our growth program. Matt Benzine is here. Did I see that? Matthew Lundy. We like Matt. We like Matt. And of course, Ward Damon. I have a particular love for Ward Damon because that's where I work, and I never thought I would love like where I worked. And I was kind of a loner, and for 10 years I worked on my own because I just wanted to do my own thing. And then these people like invited me to a Christmas party, and I saw this incredible spirit. So I'm really happy that I work with cool people, and I think it's like an inspiration. And I'm very fortunate. But what I do for a living is high conflict matrimonial law, divorce law, and that can be really stressful at times. And it takes a toll. It's almost like drinking poison. The more you do it, the more it takes a toll on you. So it takes a great deal of self-care to stay sane. Despite my youthful appearance, I've been doing this almost 21 years, guiding, at this point, hundreds of couples through the process of separation. Sometimes it's peaceful and classy, oftentimes not, and it's very difficult. And there's only so much of that I can do in a week. Like at 50, 60 hours, I can't drink any more poison. So I fill my life with other things that don't pay as well. Bill mentioned both of them, currently Center for Child Counseling. Renee has a table back there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But they help kids that go through trauma. That's very important to me. Leadership Palm Beach County, great organization. I'm with a couple chairs. We take kids out once a month for 8 months. And I calculated how many hours Bill, Corey, and I spent just on this bus, planning the bus at our orientation. We had an 8-hour orientation, and we have monthly meetings. And the three of us have already collectively put in over 300 hours this year on this program. We don't get paid a penny financially, but it's probably the most enriching thing that I get to do is work with these young kids. And 2 of them are here today filming us. So thank you, Hayden and Gavin, for coming out tonight. That's like me in a nutshell. That's what I do with my time. And I have learned lessons over my existence. And we're going to get into some of that stuff. And nothing I'm going to tell you is original thought. These are just lessons that have divinely been placed in front of me at particular points in time. And they were transformative to me. And if they did not happen at specific points in time, I would not be who I am today. So I'm going to share some of that with you today. Some of you may think it's hokey, that's cool. But some of you may actually learn something that you didn't know before about yourself. And I learned this all when I was 15 and a half years old in a 6-hour period. And that changed the trajectory of my life. And we'll get into that. But first, I got to introduce a few concepts. We're going to talk about math. Right? Doesn't that sound fun? So I have to, you have a gland here that sometimes opens if you think about different thoughts, your pineal gland. And we're all taught in school something called Euclid geometry, right? The real basic 2-dimensional a squared times b squared equals c squared. And now they're doing even kookier math in school that I don't understand. But there is much more to geometry than just the 2-dimensional images that you see. And there's really a connection to the universe with geometry that Euclid really couldn't articulate. But there's things out there that are so much more intricate, so much more meaningful, and so much more beautiful. Now, we're going to talk about magic. And I'm not, Bill told you I take rabbits out of hats because I am a magician, but beyond just the tricks, I believe in magic. I believe you can conjure magic. What I mean by that is you can channel energy and change things, hopefully for the positive. Some people do it for the negative. But you can learn how to actually channel energy and create a positive result. So we're going to talk about conjuring actual magic, not just 2-dimensional geometry. So this is kind of a neat symbol. This is the flower of life, and it is 19 circles interposed on each other. It looks like a flower, but it's really just a bunch of circles. Looks pretty neat, right? Where does this image come from? Nobody really knows, but they found a copy of this on a very old structure. This is the Temple of Osis in Egypt, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's laser etched into the building. And they say this image is over 8,000 years old, one of the oldest images in a building, not a cave, but this is the oldest image found in a building. So how could that be? How could that image have been created? Is there a pattern to the universe that's in that image? Were there aliens? Maybe. So here's the mathematician that I really like. His name is Leonardo Fibonacci. And he created something called the golden ratio, which is kind of neat. And this is where we get into divine geometry, because you're going to see some really neat connections. And if you don't know the Fibonacci sequence, here it is. You take 1 plus 1, you get 2. You take the subquotient and the sum, and you add them, and you get the next number in the sequence. So 1 plus 2 is 3. You take 2 plus 3, you get 5. 3 plus 5, you get 8. Are these just random numbers? Fibonacci was an observer of things, and when you plot this on a graph, you actually get a spiral. So that's kind of a weird coincidence, right? And you may not understand how those numbers turn into this spiral, so I'll show you. Right there. And the numbers get bigger and bigger, and the bigger they go, the proportions stay the same. And you can go up and down the spiral. So that is a pattern. And do these numbers, was that just a coincidence? Or is this a pattern that has something more than just Euclid geometry? So let's see where this pattern shows up. You see it in nature a lot. The nautilus shell is the biggest example. Weather systems, galaxies. They all fall into the exact same proportion. Almost everything in nature you can apply this proportion to. The human body, I'm going to show you how the human body meets the sequence in a number of ways. You have bones in your hands. The bones, the length of the bones, art, architecture, modern design, Darth Vader. I promise we're going to talk about Star Wars, because you'll see how that's important. Have you ever noticed how a tree grows and they splinter off? They splinter off the limbs in the exact sequence of Fibonacci. Kind of crazy, right? Go home and check this out. This is what I was talking about. The dimensions of your bones follow this formula. So is this really just a mathematical coincidence? Or is this kind of a blueprint to creation? I kind of believe that there's more to it than just a coincidence. I don't really know exactly, because I don't understand it all yet, but it intrigues me. So that's the sacred geometry part. And I'm really not doing it justice, because there is so much more to it, and you can really go deep into the subject if you're inspired. Now I'm going to switch a little bit to science, because we're going mad science, Star Wars. Trust me, we'll get there. So I've learned that as a kid, if you go through a traumatic incident, and they call them adverse childhood experiences. And this is why I love the Center for Child Counseling, because it is their job to help the children go through these things. And they also educate the community on becoming trauma-informed. And this is not new science. It's about 20 years old. That if you suffer trauma as a child, it's going to impact the chemical makeup of your brain. There's going to be a neurological disruption in your temporal lobe. And an adverse childhood experience could be many things. It could be you have an alcoholic parent, you have been a victim of abuse, you have seen an abuse, your parent is incarcerated, a parent died. There's a number of things that could affect you. This is an actual scan of a brain. The right one shows an abused child, and you can see the temporal lobes just already developed. And that's the part of your brain where you regulate your emotions, how you have relations with people. So if that is not properly formed, you're not going to have a very successful life. So you have to, Center for Child Counseling is letting everybody know that these kids who go through trauma, and I'm part of the court system, and I see some horrible things, and when I review their files, I see unspeakable trauma. It inspires me to want to help. So here's another example. I told you someone there would be 2 brain slides. They thought I was kidding. But it shows that there is a true neurological development. And this is accepted science. This isn't this is real. So they've created the ACE pyramid. You have the experience. You have this disruption in your brain. That leads to some type of social, emotional, or cognitive disruption, and that leads to risky behavior. And then eventually, it leads to disabilities, mental, social issues, eventually early death if there's not any intervention. So, without getting really into the specific details, I will share with you, I am a child of trauma. And when I took the ACE test, if you have a 3 or a 4, it's pretty rough. I had somewhere over 5. The number's kind of embarrassing. But all of my trauma kind of ended when I was 15. And this is sad, but my mom passed away. And at that point in my life, all the craziness and chaos stopped. And that's kind of where my real life began, because I was able to, I love my mom very much, she loved me, but I may not have come from the most functional family out there. And because I had these experiences, I did not have very good development up until I was 15. Fortunately, when my mom passed away, and there was a community that surrounded around me, teachers, a drama teacher, my friend's family, and they loved me. And even though I didn't have a mom, my dad wasn't always around, I got through it. And because I got through those experiences, I gained some strength. So my mom died in 1989, I was 15. This is my humanities teacher at the time. 2 weeks after my mom died, he showed us a PBS special in class. And the timing of this is, again, I don't understand it, but it has to be divine, because when I watched this program, it changed my entire life. And it was a program about Joseph Campbell. And the specific PBS story was called The Power of Myth. And it was a journalist, Bill Moyers, who interviewed Joseph Campbell. Raise of hands, how many people have heard of Joseph Campbell? I see about a third. So a third of you know what I'm about to talk about. Do you know Joseph Campbell's connection to Star Wars? If you do, raise your hand. Cool. I got you then. Joseph Campbell was a comparative mythologist. What is a comparative mythologist? Someone who compares a bunch of myths. And he came up with this thought that if you follow your bliss, if you do what you want, doors will open where before there were only walls. And that phrase is my mantra. Because if you do what you really love, and AJ kind of hit on this, things will happen in your life that would not have ordinarily happened. So you have to get on that track, and you really have to follow your bliss. So what Joseph Campbell did to reached this conclusion is he compared every story that was ever written in history. Incans, the American Indians, Hindu, the Bible, and he found a common theme. He called it a monomyth, the hero's journey. And in late 1950s, early 60s, he wrote this book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And really, this is just the template for this common story that we all share. And he was inspired by this philosopher named Carl Jung, who figured out there was something called archetypes. And there's a big debate. When we're born, are we tabula rasa? Are we a blank slate? Or do we have some inner knowledge already as part of our circuitry? Carl Jung believes that there were certain archetypes that everybody related to. Joseph Campbell built on that theory and discovered there's a common story. And he broke out the story into a formula. Whoa. So this is a big circle. And I like to think of it as a spiral, because every time you make a rotation, you're getting bigger, and your comfort zone is expanding. But the adventure starts, you get a call to adventure, there's an initiation. You pass into a supernatural realm. You go through experiences where you have a mentor, you have helpers, you have magical items that assist you. You have to go through kind of a resurrection. That resurrection is transformative. You get something out of it. You either get a prize, or maybe knowledge, or some special power, and eventually you return to your world. But now you're evolved because you had to go through an ordeal. And that ordeal made you a stronger person. And if you're not willing to go outside your comfort zone, you're never going to face that ordeal, and your comfort zone will never expand. So George Lucas picked up that book. It's a young George Lucas on the left, and if you see the guy on the right that's looking up to him, that's Joseph Campbell. And this is in the 80s when George Lucas basically admitted he wrote Star Wars right off of Hero with 1,000 Faces. And that's why Star Wars is one of the movies that when you see it, it just kind of resonates with you. Because of all of these stories, and these stories were written that Joseph Campbell studied, they were all written before mass communication. So how is it possible that we have the same story? How is that even possible? But we do. And it's not just Star Wars. If you look at almost any hero movie book, whether it's contemporary, whether it's ancient, Homer, they all follow the same path. If you don't believe me, Google whatever you want to look up, monomyth, and it will tell you the steps of how it applies to these 12 steps. So we're going to talk about the steps for a second and relate them specifically to Star Wars. And you'll see why, because this will teach you something, that it's not just about storytelling. And I don't think we're tabula rasa, because otherwise, how could we possibly articulate the same story? So the first step is the hero starts in an ordinary world, a very bland world. Luke Skywalker, Star Wars 4, Tatooine. It was a desert. Doesn't get more barren than that. But he had ties to his ordinary world. He had family obligations. Things keep you tied to your ordinary world. Sometimes you're scared, you don't want to leave it because it's comfortable. And Joseph Campbell tells you at some point, you're going to get a call to adventure. For Luke, it was, "Help me, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope." Help. And that set off something. And Luke didn't even know what it was at the time, but it set off, that was his call to adventure. We all have calls to adventures. Are we paying attention to them? Are we observing life? or are we letting those opportunities go? Joseph Campbell says that if you see your call to adventure, initially you're going to refuse it, just like Luke did. He said, I can't go with you, Obi-Wan. I got to stay on the farm. I got to help Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. Well, there was a consequence to that decision. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru didn't do too well. So there is, and if you read the Bible, something very similar happened to Josephine, where she became Saul. But these examples are in every story, right? These are the other steps of the hero's journey. You meet a mentor, Obi-Wan, Han Solo. You cross a threshold. You leave a bar and go out into a galaxy that you've never seen before. You have tests, you have allies, you make enemies. You have an approach to the ordeal, you survive the ordeal, you get the reward, you have the road back, and you return with the elixir. And that's whatever you gain, that transformative energy that you have now earned from surviving the ordeal. So is this just storytelling, or is there something much more meaningful to this that we should be paying attention to? I believe that it is just an inspiration to teach us that we can do whatever we want. And these stories kind of help us realize that the only thing holding you back is yourself. Talking about the comfort zone, here's your definition. They call it a comfort zone for a reason. It's comfortable. And sometimes it's scary to leave your comfort zone. And sometimes you have reasons not to, like family calling you back home. But if you never expand it and if you never step out of it, you're never going to have these experiences and go through an ordeal and grow from that experience. Your comfort zone, where the magic happens. You see the visual? So if you're unwilling to expand your comfort zone, big X. But if you try something new, your comfort zone expands. And I want you to think of that spiral. I don't want you just to do it once. I want you to do it frequently, because the more you do an orbit around the hero's journey, the more amazing things you're going to be able to do. Remember when Luke Skywalker walked into the cave and Yoda said, you better not go in there? By going into the cave, that's a metaphor for whatever scares you, seek it out and face it. And when you do, it becomes very less scary. And these are just simple steps that you can take to overcome issues. Now, my path you cannot mimic. You cannot copy what I am doing. I can't copy anybody else because I'm on my own path. We all are blessed with something special and unique that makes us, it gives us all different abilities. So after my mom died, I did something kind of crazy. I applied to a college stock theater in Mount Holyoke, Massachusetts as an intern, because I was a little theater geek. And the applications were due in October. But I called the lady up, the artistic director, and I told her, you should have me. You should have me come up. I'll do great things. I told her a little bit about my story. And I spent the summer doing stock theater in Mount Holyoke, Massachusetts. Stock theater is where you do a play every week, and you do the play at night, and then in the daytime you're building the next play that's going to be the next week. So in 9 weeks we did 8 plays. That's me in one of those plays. And it was kind of cool because, you kind of feel like a rock star afterwards, because it's me signing autographs with all the kids who would come see.
How
And that filled me with a confidence that I never really had before, because this was not my mom pushing me to do something. This was an independent decision that really my drama teacher pushed me to do. And this was my first cycle around that. And it was difficult going away after your mom dies to college when you're an 11th grader and you're socially awkward. And I learned a lot, and I came back a better person. So, who's this funny-looking fellow? You probably don't know, because he's my cousin. And this was another circle around the orbit for me. There was a time where I got frustrated with film in college. I didn't really think it was going to be great. Didn't know why I was in college. So my cousin, who is a good teacher of lessons, said, "Well, why don't you spend the summer working with me? Maybe you'll learn something." He's a roofer in Miami.
Oh, jeez.
So I spent the summer with my Uncle Billy on the roofs of
Oh my
Miami.
gosh.
I've never done anything like that before.
Probably never again.
Went right back to college and finished with honors. But had it not been for this divine moment, he's my cousin, but he initiated this. It wasn't me. It was him. And he took an interest in me. And it wasn't fun working on the roofs, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about life. Whatever you do, become the best at it. I wrote a book because I wanted to be the best at what I do. And I write all the cases that come out. When I do that, when I write them out, it sticks in my head, and then I type them up, and then it becomes a book. So whatever you do in life, I would suggest you do it with all your heart, and you be the best at it. Because why else would you want to do it? And then you're just working, and you're not doing something you love. I love this quote by Robert Frost: "Two roads diverged in one." There's really no better way to say it, but don't take the big comfy route. Take the one that has some challenges. Oh, another cycle was when I was invited to go to a third world country to study shamanism in the mountains of Peru. That's not something I would normally do. But why not, right? Someone invited me, so I went, and this is Machu Picchu, which is one of the most ancient ruins in the world, and discovered by Americans in 1955, but we don't really know how it got there. These are real shamans. I spent a week studying with them. We did something called an ayahuasca ceremony, which is not something I would normally do, but learned a lot. And that is me with hair. I think I looked older there. So, I'm going to talk about a couple of my heroes that really inspire me. The first one is my wife, Jackie. I love you, Jackie. And it's good to have a Jackie because she lets me do this, right? And if it wasn't for Jackie, I probably would not be as inspired, because she gets behind me and she motivates me, and I love you very much, so thank you. And she can make water too. I just love that facial.
It's beautiful.
So Jackie is one of my heroes. I have a couple more. This is a dear, dear friend of mine. His name is Chris Chopin. Fortunately, he passed away October 8th, natural causes. It's sad because he would have just turned 42 last week, March 23rd.
Oh my goodness.
And I was in his wedding party, and we worked together for a while, and he I was 5 years older than him. I was his kind of mentor. He was my mentee. But Chris is one of the most brilliant people I have ever met in my life. And he had this incredible wit about him. And first of all, his mind was like an encyclopedia. He knew everything. And not only did he know everything, but he knew how to access it and turn it into argument or humor. He would send my wife a bonsai tree on her birthday. I mean, who does that? But he was really special. And it was sad to me when he passed away because Chris was so smart. He got frustrated with people easily. And he abhorred stupidity. And it didn't look like he had he has a great family, but I was in his wedding party. I didn't see him really socialize with a lot of people, so I was so sad that so many people missed out on what he had to offer. His brilliance. And then the day after he died, I looked at his obituary. And I was amazed, because I didn't know this about him. But he had a Twitter account that had over 15,000 followers. And if you read his obituary in the post, there's hundreds of entries from people from the Twitterverse that tell you how much this man impacted their lives. So I'm really happy that he impacted so many people, and I miss him. Real quick, Golden Buddha story. When you in the 1500s, there was a bunch of Buddhist monks who had this statue. This is about a ton of gold, so it's really valuable. And they heard the Burmese were going to come and attack. So they covered the statue with clay. So when the Burmese came, it didn't look like an item of value, it just looked like a stone statue. Unfortunately, the Burmese killed all the monks. So the fact that this was a gold statue, that knowledge was lost. So for centuries, this beautiful gold statue was covered by mud. And it wasn't until the 1950s that they had to move this statue to make a highway. And they calculated the weight based on how much stone would be, and they did a pulley system. And gold is much heavier than stone. So when they started lifting it up, the pulley system broke, and it fell a little bit, and a piece of it cracked. And then they realized what an amazing piece of art, and an amazing relic, an amazing thing of value that they had. And it took them all night, but they uncovered it, and this is what they found. And that was a really neat metaphor that Joseph Campbell articulated about life. When you are born as golden as this Buddha. But as you progress through life, you develop clay. People put clay on you. Your parents do. They say you're going to become a lawyer, you're going to become a doctor, and by the time you get into high school, some people can't even move. And sometimes it takes an amazing, horrific thing in your life, like a death, or losing a job, or something that cracks that outer shell. And in that moment of despair, some of that gold shines through. And that's an opportunity for you to figure out what your calling is. So at moments like that, you have an opportunity to really see what your bliss is. So in moments of great pain, I think there are also moments of great opportunity.
Yep.
Here's one of my heroes. He's no surprise, AJ. And this is an actual photo of, I think we were here in October. And this is 45 of our 11th graders listening to AJ. And we have been coming here for years with the program. I learned about the gallery, then I learned about this theater, and then I learned about Kelsey Cares. And Kelsey Cares, if you didn't hear AJ speak before, it's a 501c3, and it's meant to help struggling artists. And AJ has done something that is very unique to help artists. And it's not just about art. AJ is building a community. If you want to sell art, most dealers will charge a huge commission. AJ thought of a way, let's do a co-op and rent the wall space, and that way the artist pays a small fee but keeps all the money, anything they sell in that period of time. That to me is inspirational because it's not him trying to make as much money as he can, it's him doing something that's helping others. And so when I heard about Kelsey Cares, and you heard what they did with this $1,000 earlier, they did some pretty cool stuff. So last I heard, we were at $3,700 that we raised just from doing this event, selling tickets and our sponsors, trying to hit 5,000. So if there's anyone that is motivated out there to want to help us, you can easily make a tax deductible contribution right outside by the ticket booth. And I would encourage you to do so because it matters. Art really does matter. They don't even teach it in high school anymore unless you go to a magnet school. And that's going to affect our society in the future. So if you're inspired, right, $5, $50, $1,000, whatever, any amount will help. And I believe in AJ. And I believe he's doing a good thing. And that's why I'm here, to help him spread the word and to raise money for these artists. That's our grow class right underneath that song. All right, so this is some cool sacred geometry. I am going to wrap things up because I have exactly 3 minutes left, and I stay on time. And I appreciate you all coming out. I know you have other things to do on a Friday night, especially on Good Friday and Passover. So thank you for supporting AJ's vision, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me ramble on for a little bit about things that have really helped transform my trajectory. Will they change your trajectory? That will be up to you. That will be up to you as whether or not you are listening. Some people think this is voodoo.
Just
I
like
have proof of
royals.
that. I was on a survey once. But I truly believe that these principles, I don't know where I'm going in life. I didn't know 10 years ago I was going to be running this growth program and being a board member and owning a law firm. I had no idea that this was where my life was going to take me. I could have predicted this 15 years ago that I would be here right now. And I'm really excited to see where I'm going to be in 15 more years because I continue to orbit around my spiral and expand my comfort zone, hopefully in each eclipse. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me. We're going to hang out for a little bit and take some more pictures with Darth Vader if you didn't get one before. You missed Kylo Ren, he's left the building. And above all, I would encourage you all to follow your bliss.
Yes.
Thank you.